All right there, everyone. A new survey conducted by the Harris poll shows that young people are increasingly rejecting the LGBT community. That's what we're talking about on today's video. But first, a warm welcome to all of our first-time viewers. We're so glad that you're here. I post 2 videos a day analyzing current events in light of some super awesome conservative trends so that you can live your values, impact lives, and change the world. So if you would, please smack that bell and subscribe button. It'd be an absolute privilege to have you as a regular part of our online community. All right, I want to give a huge shout out to one of our longtime subscribers, May, who sent me this piece that was published in USA Today. It's very, very interesting. A recent survey found that the number of Americans between the ages of 18 and 34 who are comfortable interacting with those who identify as LGBT slipped from 53% in 2017 to 45% in 2018, which is down from an astonishing 63% back in 2016. Women in particular have changed most drastically in terms of their attitudes towards gays and lesbians. Their comfort levels have plunged from 64% in 2017 to 52% in 2018. Now, of course, the poll researchers noted that young people are almost always touted as the most liberal and progressive. In fact, there are a number of articles out there claiming that the 2020 election is going to be inordinately impacted by the rising progressive demographic of young people, Generation Zers and the like. But, we have data here that suggests the opposite. People between the ages of 18 to 34 are actually more conservative when it comes to the issue of LGBTs than any other bracket. Now, the USA Today article goes on to lament these findings, and this, of course, is because the corporatist globalist media has taken sides in the culture wars. It's taken up the cause of any and all grievance groups and is thus a major advocate for grievance politics. They lament the discrimination that's just around the corner, all the setbacks against the gay and lesbian community that have occurred since Trump got into office, most especially including the ban on transgenders to serve in the military. They lament how our toxic culture, as they call it, is enveloping young people and the like. Unfortunately, there's no attempt in this article whatsoever on the part of USA Today to actually try to figure out what's going on here. It's just an occasion for social justice warrior belly aching, just throwing out a bunch of platitudes about impressionable minds being swayed by hate and bigotry and, yada, yada. But the truth of the matter is this finding by the Harris poll is actually quite consistent with a number of other studies that have found young people to actually be quite conservative in relation to other generations when they were their same age. This whole notion that young people represent this grand and glorious golden age of progressivism and liberalism is really just a bunch of wishful thinking. It's simply not borne out by the data that we have. Several independent studies have confirmed that millennials and Generation Zs are in fact even more conservative than previous generations. Let's start with some findings regarding millennials, those born between 1980 and 1994. A paper in the Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin found that millennials were actually more likely to identify as politically conservatives than either baby boomers or Generation Xers did when they were the same age. The survey actually found that 23% of millennials entering college, that's nearly a quarter of millennials around the age of 18, they identified as, in the words of the study, far right, which means I'm assuming that they believe in nationalist, anti-globalist sentiments, right? Only about 17% of baby boomers and 22% of Generation Xers identified as the same. So we're seeing a clear move favoring not only the increase of conservatives, but an increase of a particular kind of conservatism, more of what they call a far-right conservatism. In fact, they found that more high school seniors identify as politically conservative today than 10 years ago, and more identify conservative today than back in the 1980s, the Reagan era, my era. So there's a clear trajectory towards conservatism, according to this study. Another indicator was that less than half of millennials saw themselves as moderate, whereas over half of baby boomers and Generation Xers self-identified as politically moderate. Okay, so those are the millennials. How about Generation Z, those born between 1996 and 2010? Well, again, research from Wright State University in Ohio on 1,200 Generation Z students at 15 different colleges and universities across the country found that Generation Z is actually more religious than previous generations. They attend church at twice the rate of millennials and Generation Xers and boomers. If we go across the pond, as it were, a study conducted by the University of Sheffield and the University of Southampton in the UK found that British young people are, in their words, now far more right-wing in their political outlook than the previous generation. In fact, this research found that political attitudes have shifted further to the right with each of the last 3 generations, again, overlapping with research findings in the United States. According to another study just a few months back, 41% of 18 to 24-year-olds and 58% of 25 to 49-year-olds believed that immigration was too high in Britain. Another study in Poland found a marked turn to the right by Poland's young voters who were demonstrating a commitment to what the article calls post-materialist values that long for church, tradition, and security. The shift first became apparent in the last parliamentary elections back in 2015 when the Nationalist Right Law and Justice Party swept into office in Poland. An astonishing 2/3 of voters between the ages of 18 and 29 supported the right, the political right. In fact, there's a social psychological study that found that young people are overwhelmingly attracted to the notion of church, family, tradition, and nationalism. If you can believe it, the study in Poland found that only 9% of the young respondents were attracted to liberal cosmopolitan values. 9% were attracted to liberal progressivism. This is what the USA Today article should be doing. Rather than spout out a bunch of left-wing globalist banter, they should actually be doing some reporting. The Harris poll on increasingly conservative attitudes towards homosexuality and transgenderism turns out to be par for the course. Young people are overwhelmingly becoming more conservative. Now, the reason for this move to the right is no mystery to us here on this channel. It's no mystery to a number of scholars that actually want to study this stuff rather than throw out a bunch of progressive platitudes. A number of philosophers and scholars have argued that the world is currently going through a kind of retraditionalization, where secular, politically correct, progressive values have overplayed their hand. They've overreached in terms of just how much populations are willing to tolerate, and now there's a cultural backlash, where populations are increasingly re-embracing their cultures, customs, and traditions as mechanisms of resistance against this secularized, globalized overreach. And young people, we're finding, are no exception to this. Young people are, in fact, at the forefront of this trend towards retraditionalization. I like to use the anecdote about the Latin Mass coming back to the Catholic Church. When Pope Benedict brought back the Latin Mass, also known as the Tridentine Mass, it was expected that the congregants showing up for its revitalization, would all be in their, over 60. They're all old enough to remember their Latin before the Second Vatican Council in the 1960s that replaced the Latin Mass with vernacular worship. But instead, to everyone's amazement, the majority of congregants showing up were Catholics in their late teens and early 20s. The world is becoming more conservative. There is a massive shift away from globalist progressive lifestyle values, which this USA Today article inadvertently admits. And in many respects, it really is just the beginning. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure to click on that link below and get your brand new Turley Talks Executive Bound Journal book. We're down to our final single digits. I think 5 left. And please click on that link below. Check out some of our coffee mugs and t-shirts and all kinds of accessories that celebrate all things nationalist, populist, traditionalist that you're going to love. Click on either our Patreon, subscribe to our PayPal links below, and consider becoming a monthly supporter of this channel and help us to continue to analyze current events in light of super awesome conservative trends so you can live in the present light of even better things to come. God bless.